Hey everyone, and welcome to the second of what is a Bidalgo mini webinar series on ad creative strategy and how to do it right. For those of you who were with us last time, we talked about getting started in the soft launch, the initial launch phase, and making sure you set yourself up for long-term success. Today, in part two, we're going to be talking about scaling up, really going from that middle round of 100K, a few 100K, to the next step and achieving those goals. I'm Matt Skurnick, product growth lead here in EMEA, and I'm really excited to be going through this with you guys. So you may have seen this before last time. I just want to refresh why we're here, what we're talking about. For those of you who've been in the industry for a few years, you remember it used to be very much about audiences, targeting, bidding, all these little different things that you were doing, and also creative. Today, with the advent of things like AAA and UAC and more kind of black box solutions taking place at the channel level, we're really seeing that bidding and targeting is becoming more streamlined, leveling the playing field between different advertisers. But creative is still what's an exception. And it leaves a lot of advertisers with blind spots or having to rethink their creative strategy to be more efficient. This has become more important over the next few months with the loss of certain user level data and things like iOS 14. So let's talk about how you can set yourself up for success moving forward. So today we're really talking about advertisers who have a stable activity already. They're likely seeing success in up to 4 channels already. Probably 1 or 2 of those are their main channels, and the other ones are more testing or side channels with different KPIs, different goals, and are spending more than 100K. We typically see that this could be up to 100K, 200K, 300K, but their goal is to get to 500K or $1 million per month by the end of the year. And they want to do this while they're both scaling financially and operationally efficiently. This means that you have your KPIs in mind and you don't want to lose these KPIs as you scale. You might have some blockers here, things like creative challenges or your new creatives aren't hitting those same KPIs and you're having trouble finding new winners. Or something's really seeming inefficient. You might have a lot of creatives, but they're not winning. Or you might have too few creatives, but they're very high quality, but they're not diverse enough. And as you do this, as you expand to more channels, you really need to focus on what's important. This might be KPIs or a focus in your creative strategy. And so how can we do this without really overcomplicating this situation? So this starts with making sure that you have all the data in the right way to really start scaling. So this means a creative-centric approach. In the past, where the ad level used to be enough, you didn't really need to focus on the creative level, but today we're seeing that one ad, for example, in AAA, can have up to 50 creatives, different texts, different descriptions, and you need to be able to see what's happening inside of that ad. This means tracking creative performance, not just in that place, but how do I match that creative or that concept in that specific channel to my creatives and concepts that are being used across my different channels. And instead of putting all the time and effort and focus on organizing this data and getting it to one place, you want to make sure you have this already there in a way that's glanceable and actionable. So you can see that right away and focus your time and energy on the analysis portion. Now, this means aggregating it properly from all the different sources. And this way you can discover meaningful correlations between the creative performance and any other event in the funnel, whether it be upper funnel or lower funnel. And even if you're thinking, oh, like this isn't that important for me at this point in time, you'll find that with iOS 14 or as you make certain product changes, having this previous data and seeing these creative concepts becomes really important because we often see the recycling of creative concepts as different companies scale. When we talk about optimizing our creative for scale, there's 2 different elements. One is the bird's eye view and one is the performance level view in each channel. So we want to start with the bird's eye view. This means tracking your common creative elements in your successful creatives and in your weaker creatives across the different channels so you can see actionable insights here. And we usually think about this as somewhat of a SWOT grid, a SWOT framework where we're looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And what's important to you is going to differ for each app in each different industry. And it could be things like the art style. Are we talking about cartoonish or animation compared to real people? It could be different characters. It could be different features of specific USP or a share function or a group function, a specific call to action. When your brand name is mentioned, is it in the first 5 seconds or the last 5 seconds? These are all different things that you want to be able to track and analyze across your different channels. we now need to kind of match that with the performance data. And this is where it becomes so important for performance teams and creative teams to be really having that same conversation and speaking the same language. Here, what we're doing is we're looking inside those different channels to try and find the success factors. What is my strongest concept? What is my strongest channel? What is my strongest publisher in these different areas? What sizes, what video lengths are really driving that success, so we can feed that success back into creative analysis. And the next thing I want to touch on is a little bit of a framework that you can use to frame these conversations. Oftentimes we do see that these discussions are more informal and you end up with kind of good ideas, but it's not going all the way there. And what we want to do is give you this framework so you can actually frame that discussion, build a dashboard of some sort that you can come back to each week and really begin optimizing not just your creative, but your creative resources. So let's start with the creative side. And you'll see we've broken this up into creative and your different channels. So on the creative side, we really want to focus on our strengths and opportunities. If you have enough time, I would also recommend looking at the weaknesses and threats. Threats being more around the idea of creative fatigue. But inside of the strengths, what we're looking at here is which are my specific USPs or characters or features have I identified as having great results. And those great results don't necessarily need to be one specific KPI. We can be talking about different KPIs here. So you might want to look at several different KPIs. What is the strongest in each one of those? So that way we can kind of learn how to mix those together and see if we can actually come up with an even stronger creative. The next part is the opportunity part. And this is equally as important. You want to look for things that get less spend, but have really good results. And I don't mean something with 50 installs or $50 a day. I mean something that has enough that it's relevant and it's catching your eye, but maybe hasn't been fully pushed to its full potential. Now we want to combine these strengths and opportunities with that performance data we've seen from each specific channel. So in specific channels, I may notice that an audience network or a specific publisher or a specific size is performing really well. Or I see a specific audience that is doing really well with certain creatives or things. So I want to try and align now my strengths and opportunities to this. But also I might notice that there are certain parts of a different channel that I have really good results on, but I'm not getting enough spend. And this is kind of comes back to something we talked about last time of looking at not just where the results are, but also where the spend is. So we can work with where that flow of your auction is going. Now I can use my strengths and opportunities to look at what's already working in these opportunities or these strengths in the channels and blend those together. So that way my creatives are efficient for what's doing the best there. And I'll do the same thing across channel B. And I may also want to look at, in terms of performance opportunities, if I have enough time, like weaknesses and threats. In the weaknesses, do I have too much spend going to a specific placement, a specific publisher, a specific video size? Why is it going there? And how can I optimize my creative resources to not invest or to avoid those types of auctions? And these are things that you'll work on as you go forward. But as you do these things, you don't want to just look at the effects of them. You also want to monitor these changes that you're making. And it's really important that you have this and try and automate it as much as possible around this data aggregation, insight, and extraction. Why? Because as we mentioned before, you want to focus your efforts on seeing the insights, not on putting it all together. Now, this allows you to look at things like creative fatigue. Now, sometimes this can be specific to one channel, but as we mentioned, if you're really looking at going to a several hundred K a month across multiple different channels, you're going to see that this creative fatigue is taking place on a cross-channel level. It can be concept-wide. So now as users might see an ad on, for example, YouTube, but also on an audience network, and then also on, for example, a more casual ad network, you're seeing that they're going to get fatigued. You need to find new ways of doing this. Next, I'm talking about creative testing, and this is something that you should really be thinking about around iOS 14 and how you're going to optimize and structure creative testing. But you want to use it as more than just a single KPI. All too often we see people just focusing on IPMs or around CTR or a certain amount of installs or cost per install, something like that. But this is really an excellent learning opportunity to look beyond that. This is one of the very few times in your activity that you really have a siloed apples to apples experiment. And so beyond just looking at which creative did the best, you can actually look at, let's say I have a bunch of square creatives and I've used a different color in each creative or a different character or a different feature. we might see that the spend or the auctions that those creatives win are going to be completely different. And what can I learn from that? And how can I use that to inform my future creative discussions? So this is a little bonus, some tips around iOS 14 and how to prepare for that. We are going to see the loss of user level data for the vast majority of users that you bring in. And this is going to change how we do creative strategy and also campaign management strategy. And so over the next few months until these changes take place, if you haven't already started implementing your schema, I would highly suggest using this time left to glean important insights about the correlations between certain creatives and those lower funnel events. This is one of the few times you're going to have, or probably the only time, where you'll have deterministic data and SKAD network data at the same time. Use it to learn as much as you can. And also use it, how can you standardize these SKAD network events to certain KPIs or certain things with your deterministic data, so that way you can know, at least in the first few months, how you're performing relative as you learn new optimization strategies and discover them. Next, with less user level data in the different channels in your marketing data, you're going to need to learn how to utilize creative to target the right users and exclude the wrong users. We call this personalization at scale. And it's going to be the best way cross-channel of figuring out where my users are and bringing the high quality users into my product, my app, whatever it might be that I'm marketing. So thanks for sticking around today. Thanks for watching this. If you have any questions, you feel free to visit our website, reach out to contact@bidalgo.com where we'll get back to you, or me personally, Matthew@bidalgo.com. And hope to see you next time on part 3, where we're going to be talking about large scale enterprise apps and how to move forward and be most efficient with those.